Pedro, I'm here with John from Warbringer. How's it going?
Going great, man. I'm sitting on my porch doing interviews and having some coffee. It's a fine morning here in quarantine. Day, God knows what, locked up at home, and they're blurring together right now, but we're staying strong. We're not going to get infected, God damn it.
I hope the weapons of tomorrow is a vaccine for this virus.
It might have been the virus for all we know.
That's true. It totally could have been the virus. I can see that being a weapon.
If you want to get all conspiratorial about it.
If you want to get into conspiracy theories. First question that I have to ask you about the record is, did you guys take a different approach with this album?
Compared to the last one?
Compared to the last one?
I'd say, honestly, no. One of the things that's interesting about this record, this is the first time in our career where I think we very much said, the last record was probably the best thing we ever did, and we should continue in that direction. We've never been in that spot before. So I think it didn't turn out the same as the last record. I don't think it's a 2.0, so to speak. But I think when we went into writing it, the attitude very much was Woe to the Vanquished is the best Warbringer record to date. We really like the kind of 2.0 version of the band. For those that don't know, Warbringer kind of fell apart after its fourth record, and the first lineup core of me, John Locks, and Adam Carroll kind of dissolved. It came back together a year or two later with myself, Adam Carroll again, and drummer Carlos Cruz on guitar writing. So he plays drums in the band, but he's this main songwriter for the songs on guitar. That's a unique thing in our band. And that's kind of the 2.0 setup. So that's been the last record and this one. And it's been... basically, we were really sure that we liked the direction of the last one, and we just wanted to continue down that path, put the foot, one foot in front of the other, still doing the same kind of thing we are, which I would describe as a mixture of classic thrash metal with extreme melodic and progressive influence. That's what I'd say. I'd say the difference between the two is that on Woe to the Vanquished, you get a real split between the side A being heavy and thrashy and fast, and the side B being kind of proggy and dark, melodic and black metal influenced. And on Weapons of Tomorrow, that those two elements are much more spread out throughout the record. And I think we're more confident in the dark, melodic, progressive element to kind of put some of that on the side A and to make that a defining feature.
It's interesting that you're saying that, because when I was listening to the album, I felt that the album was actually divided into three parts. You had the very aggressive start, which felt to me very typical old school thrash metal sound to get the album started. So for the fans of the band, there's a sense of familiarity, so that it gets you in the door, if you will. Then to me, there's a middle stretch there that starts with Defiance of Fate, which is a little bit more melancholic. There's a couple of middle tracks there that it felt a little bit more melancholic, a little bit more progressive, if you will. And then the third part of the record feels like those two parts coming together as one in order to finish the album really strong. So I had that feeling listening to it. Is it accurate or
that's cool as fuck? Yeah. I think your assessments. I think the way I'm picturing it as one. The first track section you mentioned would be 1 through 3. Second section would be like 4. It would be like 4 through 6. Up to Heart of Darkness. And
Heart of Darkness.
The last section would be like Power Unsurpassed, Outer Reaches, Notre Dame, Glorious End, which is.
Exactly.
So I think actually I hadn't thought of it that way, but I think you're right.
I just had that feeling listening to the album. It had this sense of evolution, so it had this nice progression to it. It starts off very comfortable, knowing exactly what your sound is, what you guys have done in the past, but then there's a little bit more melancholy that is not necessarily something you guys done a lot of it, but it definitely feels like the middle section is a little bit darker. And then it comes all together. The last 4 tracks of the album is just like rampage. It's like an avalanche of sound, of movement coming at you. Are you happy with that fluidity that the album has?
Oh, I love the way this album came out in general. I'm proud as hell of this record. Yeah, I think it turned out great. I'm really glad you see it that way. Yeah, basically, yes.
It's an album that I felt. I know you said that you felt the last record was the band's best record. I know when you go into the studio, every time you make a record, you want that record to be your best record. I honestly, the reason I started off with that question, asking if you guys took a different approach, is because I really feel like this is your best record to date.
I hope so. Yeah.
Honestly, it's just very powerful, very dynamic. And so when you sit back now, the album is done. You're waiting it to reach the masses at the end of the month of April. When you look at it, do you feel like this is perhaps your best record to date? I know it sounds cliche, but I really feel that way. I just want to see if you have some reservations or if you agree with it.
I would agree with it. I'd say the only contest in our discography is the last one. I see these two as being kind of a new era for the band. And now that we have two of them, it's kind of solidified, I think, because I think there's a stylistic continuity between them. But yeah, I think both of these records, and probably the new one in particular, are better than anything we did before. I think the band's at a level of skill and refinement that we weren't at before. And I think the thing that's kind of unique about us is we got to that level of skill and refinement, and we're still like a mid-tier, on the border of the underground and mainstream of metal kind of band. And so I think we still have the hunger. I think the band still has a lot to prove. I think everyone still feels that the name Warbringer needs to be a household name in metal, and that we got to make that happen. So I think that I'm really proud to say that I think my band is fortunately able to hit new peaks 10, 12, 15 years into its career, and that we're not treading water, that we're the strongest we've ever been. I really feel like that. And I think some of the security from the last record, from making something we were all so proud of, and then keeping pretty much the exact same lineup. We have a change in the bass department, but the core songwriting team was all the same. We still had Chase Becker busting out the leads. So I think the lineup being the same, and then kind of the support from the fan base and critics alike on Woe to the Vanquish really helped put a lot of wind into our sails going into this one. Everyone was really confident, and I think everyone was really just proud of what we were doing. So it wasn't a challenge to write this so much. We kind of just went in and did it, and we're pretty sure of it ourselves the whole time. I was coming into it with some of my more favorite song and concept and lyrical ideas. I'm especially proud of the last track, which is very much my baby on the record, if you will. I had this lyric idea like a couple of years before we wrote the record, and I was able to manifest it verbatim as it was in my head onto the album. So that was great. I feel very proud of that. So yeah, I think it's probably our best record. I think its only competition would be the last one. I think the two of these records go really well together. Yes. And we, even with the color scheme, you'll notice if you look at the album covers, they're kind of designed to be two opposite sides of the same coin. So I think this is very much like the identity of Warbringer today can be seen in these two records, where you get a mixture of the just peel your face off kind of thrashing with the really epic progressive stuff. And I think one other thing we do that's kind of cool is thrash metal actually isn't a narrow genre. It's actually a pretty wide genre. And I think we're one of the few bands that'll really go throughout the breadth of the whole thing. So we'll go from the Slayer, Dark Angel, Demolition Hammer-esque brutal machine gun stuff to stuff that leans towards black metal, to stuff that leans to new wave of British heavy metal, to stuff that's progressive. And I think that the thrash genre is at a cool place in kind of the tree, if you will, of heavy metal genres, because it's at the middle of everything. It shares a border with all the rest of them, so you can blend it with any of the rest of them, and it's not weird or it's not unusual, and it fits very nicely. You can have heavy metal leaning thrash, you can have death metal leaning thrash, you can have black metal leaning thrash, you can have progressive thrash, you can have punk rock leaning thrash. It's all the same genre that touches all of these things, and I think Warbringer tries to explore all of that in the same record.
I have to ask you this: who the hell in the world of metal doesn't know who Warbringer is? I mean, I think you're being very humble here. You guys are already a household name.
Well, it's compared to who, so yes and no, and that's a tricky thing. As the guy who's here doing it, how successful should I regard myself, right? So I personally think that the moment you say we've made it, we're done, your next record's not going to be very good.
Yeah. I agree with you.
So I think part of the thing is Warbringer always feels like we still have something left to prove. We still have something left to accomplish. Also, though, too, so on one hand, I'm very grateful for where our band is. We've been very successful. We have amazing fans, amazing support from people. On the other hand, I still can't make a living doing this. Let's be real. So, come on, who am I trying to kid? We're playing clubs and stuff around the world generally. So there it is. So I want to do more and I want to do better. And, I think if you compare us to the perspective of like a starting out band or something, you could say we're very successful. You compare us to Metallica or something, we're a little blip, So it is what it is, and I think the humility and this idea of I can't say to myself, we've made it, we're great. I'm not allowed to say that to myself because as soon as I do, we'll stop getting better. And then what's the point of being a band anymore? If you're treading water, fuck off. Make room for someone who isn't. That's my thought.
I can tell you one thing. I've seen you guys live now in Toronto twice. I think the first time I saw you guys was back in 2012. You guys were touring with Exodus and Creator. And you guys were lit back then. And I saw you guys in the last tour you were on with Enforcer. And you guys destroyed the show. Absolutely. It was incredible. The energy. I would say that 98% of the people that came to that show came to see you guys. And the energy that you guys brought on stage is definitely the energy of somebody who's hungry and who wants to prove night in and night out that you're here to stay and you want to really push the envelope. That energy you guys have live, is that a little bit of something you bring in, like it's a little bit of a chip on your shoulder? You really want to show, it's almost a Michael Jordan mentality. Maybe there's somebody there seeing you guys for the first time and you wanted them to leave with a positive impression of the band.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's the point of playing live. Absolutely. Boiled down, you want people who see you to think, wow, that was a hell of a band. And, I try to think every night of just how much I've put into it. It's been my life's work. I haven't done anything to nearly the extent I've done this. So it's very important to me that people see that, we really care about what we're doing. We believe in what we're doing, and that comes through on stage. And I think that nowhere does our band shine more than on a stage. I think that the level of musicianship we've got is really good. We have this band that's played over, I've played over 1,400 concerts in my career, so I know what I'm doing by this point, I hope. And I think just there's a level of tightness, professionalism, and hunger, though, because it's very scrappy doing what we do still. We got to set up the damn stage ourselves. We got to do all this stuff. It's a lot of work, and we do all of it. When we're on tour, we live it every minute, and I think that shows too. I think just the amount of hunger and drive that the band personally puts in, because at the level we're at, we're doing so much shit ourselves still, and it's been this way the whole time. And it's, the whole career of the band has felt like one uphill battle after the other. People are asking me, so you're putting out a record and it's during coronavirus? And I'm like, yeah, uphill battle number 589 or whatever. I'll fight this one like the rest of them. It's no shit Murphy's Law against us. We're playing real metal. Of course, the universe isn't going to do us any favors. It never has for that. It'll do its favor. If I want to write a song about having money or something, I'm sure I'd get somewhere in no time, but that's not me. I gotta do I have to do my screaming metal about warfare and civilization and the fate of the world and all that. So there you go. That's me. That's my life. That's what I'm gonna do. And damn the cost. Full speed ahead.
This if there's one thing this quarantine thing is going to do for you guys, is give you some writing material for the next album.
Perhaps. I mean, perhaps.
We can talk about
I've been sitting inside. I've been sitting inside with my cats all day, though. being a homebody, it's really been not super metal in here. I played the new Doom game. That was sweet. There's a lot of killing demons in it. That's pretty metal. But other than that, like really nothing going on. It's shockingly boring by this point. For a worldwide crisis, the day-to-day of it is not very exciting.
No, I always thought that we would face the apocalypse in a different way, and I'm facing the apocalypse getting fat and wearing pajama pants. So it's really not how I pictured it.
Well, in a way, isn't that fitting? I mean, shit, that movie, that Pixar movie, Wall-E, kind of foresaw the apocalypse going down in something of a similar fashion. You know, everyone getting fat and wearing pajama pants. I'm wearing pajama pants right now, by the way. We're complete with cat hair. There you go. I got the full
Now
quarantine
that is
thing
metal.
going on.
That's definitely metal.
My cat's name, so you know, is Fatsy Cline, like the country singer Patsy Cline, and she is indeed fat. She has white fluff. It's very fluffy. It gets everywhere. That's been a major fact of my quarantine.
Oh my god, this is the best. This is the best.
Yeah.
Going back to the live stuff, I wanted to ask you. This record really captures that live essence that I was talking about, that energy that you guys bring on stage. When you're putting the record together, do you take in consideration how the songs will sound live? Or is that not even in your mind? You just really want to create the best songs possible. And then if you have to tweak something later on for the live set, then you'll do that later on.
Generally, Warbringer's always been very much like, if we can't play it live, it doesn't go on the record. You know, there's not a lot of extra stuff that goes onto there. The last record, there's a couple things. Like, for instance, the boom in the middle of Shellfire on the incoming, that goes over the PA live. So we do that with a couple things where we'll have, like, an effect or something. But it's these minor little things. So on this one, the stuff that might be tough to do live, and to be honest, we haven't had a chance to play any of this stuff live except Firepower Kills, which is a pretty straight ahead thrashing number.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty tough one to play live endurance wise, to tell you the truth. Didn't see that coming when you're like, ooh.
What a great opening track, though, because it's like it lets everybody know what they're going to get themselves into with the rest of the album.
I don't think we've had an opener that isn't a fast burner. Like, I just think it's the right way to start a record. You're putting on a thrash record. It's got a big spiky W on the cover. It's got to blow your head off in the moment you drop the needle. There's, you know, or press play or what have you, if you want to take a more modern analogy. Anyway, so I think, basically we got to blow the gate off on the first song. As far as the live numbers go, the stuff that I foresee as being a little challenging is Defiance of Fate and Glorious End because of some of the different voices. I think some of that will come down to having a sound guy who will mix them, because basically the regular Warbringer voice is loud as fuck, and some of the other voices I do aren't as loud. Like on Defiance of Fate, I do that black metal voice, something new for the verse, but it's actually a pretty soft sound. The way that one's done, it's not loud. It's like almost a little whispery because the forlorn delivery and stuff. So that one might be tough to get across live, and we'll see how we adapt to that challenge. The other one is the father voice in Glorious End, the my son, that one. That's me doing that, doing my best Mufasa there. And you know, that no, I was saying that when we were producing, I'm like, think of Mufasa in the clouds. That's what I want. It's like, you know, my son. I want that. It's so good. James Earl Jones, motherfucker. You know, an underrated Thulsa Doom, where he also does the my son thing in Conan the Barbarian. It's so kick-ass. He does in the exact same voice. I fucking love that guy. He's an even better narrative voice than Morgan Freeman. James Earl Jones, best voice ever. Anyway, sorry, it's my little tirade there. Darth Vader, Thulsa Doom, and Mufasa. And don't forget Thulsa Doom. Conan the Barbarian's like even a better movie than those other two. And that's saying something, you know, Conan the fucking Barbarian. And no, I don't mean the one with Jason Momoa. Even he said he didn't like the one he was in.
That's a classic movie. Not the one with him, but the original.
No, you know, the 1982, The Riddle of Steel. You know, the one that, from which Manowar got all their album covers.
Exactly. Just gonna say that.
No, dude, check it out. Their second album comes out in 1982, the year that movie's released, and it just so happens they're all wearing loincloths. Influence, and they have a song called Secrets of Steel, where he's talking about the Riddle of Steel and shit. I wonder, you know? Dude, Conan the Barbarian is a seminal film for the development of heavy metal.
At least if you ask Manowar, for sure. For sure. I mean, the way they dress, the way the album covers, like the lyrics. I mean,
all of it, yeah.
Contract in Blood. I mean, even that you could probably trace it back to Conan the Barbarian.
It's something that a barbarian might do. Now consider, consider as well, then, if you're going to follow that thread further, the next place it goes is actually you have to take that thread from Conan the Barbarian to Manowar, and you have to follow it all the way to Sweden, where you get to the Bathory Viking albums and shit like Blood and Iron and all that has the Riddle of Steel on it. So that thread goes much further than just our swords and loincloths wielding friends, because there's something in Conan beyond the swords and loincloths, which is a deep philosophical meaning about self-reliance and man trying to survive in and like be himself in a savage and cruel world. And I think that there's something very deep and ancient about that actually makes me think of Conan the Philosopher. That's why I really love that movie. If it was another, there's plenty where they swing swords, but it's more than just that makes it cool, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. That one is definitely a classic. And you mentioned something very interesting, and I'm glad you mentioned, which is Defiance of Fate and the change of the vocals. When I was listening to that track, it's one of my favorite tracks on the album. I felt a little influence of King Diamond in that song, not from a vocal perspective, but from an overall style and approach, because that track is very dynamic. A lot of vocal changes with that song, and the way it goes, the way the structure that the song has a nice fluidity to it, very dark, black metalish vibe to it. Tell me a little bit about that song. How did that track like Defiance of Fate came about?
Well, this one came about straight up because I was at Carlos's house and he was showing me, I think he was showing me the demos that he wrote for Crush Beneath the Tracks and I think it was that one and Black Hand. So he was working on those two and he said like, yo, man, so one night I was working on this stuff and I was high and I wrote this. And so he didn't, and he showed me it was the instrumental for Defiance of Fate. And Carlos is very meticulous as a writer. And when he writes on guitar, he's a drummer first, so he writes the drum parts in. So when you get anything from Carlos, it's usually very fleshed out and detailed. He's not one to send you like a riff by itself and be like, I came up with this. He'll be like, he'll give you a fucking symphony and be like, I've been working on the little something, He's one of those guys. So I get Defiant Fate and the instrumental exactly the same as it is on the record, too. We didn't change a damn thing. Even the solo, that's actually him that plays the solo at the end. And it was the same one from the demo.
Wow.
So we had that song like nailed down. The tricky part was me putting vocals because Carlos, like I said, he was like, I was high, I wrote this. He didn't think it was a Warbringer song. He's just like, I wrote it and I like it and I wanted to make it a Warbringer song, but I had to approach it different because we've never done a ballady verse and because the way I sing is kind of the opposite of a ballad,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what we
But
went
it had that thrash metal ballad mixed with King Diamond feel to it. But go ahead.
Yeah, the mix with King Diamond. So we weren't specifically thinking King Diamond on that one, but we were thinking black metal-ness. So King Diamond, he shares a border with that. So I see it's not a bad comparison at all. I think Carlos was, how he explained it to me is if you took a song like Fade to Black, like Cemetery Gates, like one of these kind of half ballad numbers that you get from classic thrash band, the Pantera borderline thrash groove metal, but still, stuff within the classic metal canon that does this like half ballad but still heavy kind of approach. And I think our twist on it, so he's basically, let's take one of those and make it turn into Viking Bathory by the end. So like, Fade to Black, they do it's a similar structure. They have a half ballad, half heavy kind of verse chorus thing. And then at the end of the song, the climax is you go into a bunch of fast thrash riffs, and it's all epic and great and stuff. So our twist on it basically is, what if it went into straight up black metal, like something you'd find on Bathory Nordland or whatever at the end. It isn't even straight up black metal. It's what they call it, Viking metal or whatever. But it's a epic mountain sounding thing to me. So basically that's how it ended up. And the Defiance of Fate thing, that was my doing. It's sort of a theme of kind of in the verse, there's a twist that goes with the music. So in the verses, the speaker is all nihilistic and feeling hopeless and meaningless. And I think everybody deals with that because you're mortal and you're going to die, and that sucks. You got to deal with that. It's not an easy one. So it's about that at the first half. In the second half is kind of the speaker saying, wait, but am I going to let that be the final word on my life? Fuck that. This is all I got. I got to do something with it. So the second half is the defiance part, where your fate is basically to die an anonymous nothing, pretty much. And defying that fate is I will create a meaning out of my life. I'm going to do something to make it so I am more than that. And I'll take that in my own goddamn hands and do it. You know, I'll burn my flame so bright, you'll know who the fuck I am. You know, I'm not going to die of nothing. So it's something very personal, and I think it's something personal not just for me, but for fucking anybody who like cares about their own life, basically. So I think that that was my addition to the song, is just connecting Carlos's music with a lyrical idea and realizing it. It took a while. I actually wrote the song in two parts. I wrote the whole second half when I heard the demo first, then sat on it for like 3 months, not knowing what to do with the verses, until I wrote the verse and recorded it the next day while we were in the studio. So a bit of premeditation and a bit of kind of just inspiration, I guess. Yeah, improvisation, inspiration. Well, I wrote it down. It wasn't improvised. I wasn't like freestyling, but I wrote it down the day before I did it. So I didn't really have a chance to practice. I just went and came up with it, did it, and there it was.
So with Weapons of Tomorrow being released on April 24th and us being under quarantine, what are you guys thinking of doing? Like, do you guys have any plans on promoting the album or on doing something so that people pick up the record and support you guys? Because there's not going to be a tour right now. Like, you can't go anywhere. So do you guys have anything in mind on what's the best approach to get as many people listening to this incredible album as possible?
Well, we're pretty much releasing a lot of media. FYI, I'm on 2%. I might have to go and charge this and finish up the end of the interview.
Oh, it's the last question. Is that okay? It's the last question.
Okay, cool. Let's see if we can make it. Okay, so basically, we can't tour until later in the year. That really sucks. You know, it's kind of bad luck releasing the record during this, but hey, we think people need a good record to listen to, so hopefully this scratches that itch. And basically, we're going to put out a lot of media. We're putting out a new, we did a thing we put out Firepower Kills. We put out the video for Black Hand Reaches Out, and we're putting out a lyric video for Glorious End this Friday. So a lot of media just for people to watch at home. We're also doing, or we did rather, and we're releasing first in bits and pieces, and then it's the whole thing, an entire behind the record documentary that chronicles, like how you asked about Defiance of Fate. It's like a more in-depth version of what I said to you there, plus every other song, both on the music, the lyrics, and the process of how we wrote it. It's a documentary called The Science of Thrash. It's like 45 minutes, you know. So we do a real deep dive on everything we did behind every song on this record, and hopefully that it's the kind of record where people listen to it a bunch of times and want to do that deep dive on it, because we try to really deliver the content. We want it to be a band that you can listen to this record 100 times and still find new stuff you enjoy. So hopefully, you know, this isn't a great and sexy answer, but hopefully just the sheer quality of the record sells itself, and you have to stand. There isn't a magic quick fix solution to be able to, you know, there's nothing we can really do that's as good as touring for the record when it comes out. There really isn't a substitute for that. We could do like a live stream or whatever. We're doing various media. I think I'm doing a Reddit AMA. I'm doing all these interviews. We did this documentary. We're doing everything we can, but really we're going to tour eventually on it. We're going to blow your head off when we do. And in the meantime, we really hope you enjoy the record. And we tried to make hopefully one of the best records of the year, or just metal in general. That's our goal. So we really hope you guys enjoy it.
Well, on that note, thank you very much for your time. And we were able to do this before the battery runs out. So it's a win-win situation. All right, John, take care of yourself, man. Stay healthy. And the next time you guys are in Toronto, I'll be there again to see you. And I know you already have a merch guy that does your merch in Toronto, but if you need somebody else, give me a call. I'm your man.
All right. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Have yourself a good one.
You too, man. Take care.